There's another SEC game out there right now. That's number 7 Kentucky at number 14 Ole Miss. I think each one of these teams are battling for the number 2 spot in their division. Ole Miss is obviously 4-0, hadn't really played anybody, so we don't know who the hell they really are, but they're playing for that number 2 spot behind Alabama right now. And I think Kentucky is sitting at number 2, slightly ahead of Tennessee right now, I believe, behind Georgia in the East. I mean, whoever wins this game can keep a pretty good hold on that number 2 slot in their division. Statement game for both teams. G, I know you're real high on Mark Stoops' boys out there. I want to hit you with this. Tell me if you think this is accurate. I made this comment the other day on doing some radio. I think Kentucky right now is a poor man's Georgia. And I don't mean that with as negative a connotation as that sounds. I just can't come up with anything better.
At all. Yep. I don't think it's negative at all. I think that's facts. I think behind Georgia and Alabama, and I don't even know how far behind, I don't know if there's an SEC team that puts a better, stronger, badder 22 on the field. Close. I don't think there's another, like, they can step out there and go man-to-man in the trenches. They run downhill. They meet you at the point of attack. There is no real finesse to this team. And they want to go toe-to-toe. There is no dancing and all that other stuff. They're not throwing combos. They're throwing haymakers. And if they're a poor man's Georgia, I think their quarterback is better than Georgia's. I think they do some things offensively. It's a little bit more dynamic. No one touches Georgia's defense, like just no one. But Kentucky has a formidable one. And I think if you put them up against a whole lot of teams in the country in a neutral site, Kentucky comes out of that. They're coached hard. They're coached well, smart players. But the physicality of this unit, they have a brand. And, yeah, the brand isn't too far off of, that super Raptor truck that's Georgia. Theirs is like the next model down. That's it. That's still a badass brand.
I just look at how they're constructed. Defensive-minded head coach, strong on defense. Across the board, 11 deep on one accord, an offense that's a little bit more pro-stylish than most. Quarterbacks, although they don't look the same, I do think in terms of being a college football quarterback and what value they bring to the table, to their program, I think they are two very similar quarterbacks. Obviously good run games as well. Just everything across the board. When I look at Georgia, I can check that same box in Kentucky, other than just outright number 1 team in the country. Other than that, obviously, I can check those boxes. Hack, I want you to jump into Will Levis a little bit. He is a former Penn State kid, right?
Yep.
You know a little bit about Will Levis, and I know I've heard you talk about him before, but this year, through 4 games, what have you seen? Where do you slot Levis in terms of the draftable quarterbacks, and what are you seeing?
I think intangibles got it all. Can't really argue with the frame and what athletically and arm talent, all that stuff. The growth I want to see him in. I know he's had a few different. I think this is his second coordinator here. I think they've had two coordinators. I think they're still trying to find an identity offensively. Just watching it. But his skill set allows you to do a lot, and the way the team's built allows you to do a lot as well. You see some pro style concepts. He gets under center. He's working off big play action. They're getting him off on nakeds, getting them on the edge, giving that threat as well. But then there's some situations where you're going RPO, true RPO, with your more spread concept, spread run game. And that's more of your backbone. So I think they're really still trying to figure out what they do well and efficiently. But Will's shown a propensity to be able to do it all. And we'll just see how he continues to develop. I think he needs to cut down on the turnovers. He forces some things specifically in the red zone this year is kind of ones when you got points and you expect a guy who's been around as long as he's been around, even though he's only been a starter for 2 years, he's still been around college football, a relatively long time. Got to cut down on the red zone turnovers. And especially if you're going to go out and get the Georgias of your side of the division. To your point, you can't go out there and be dropping balls and self-inflicted wounds. You got to make sure that you're on top of it. But, I think he's got it all. So we'll see how he continues to develop. We'll see how the team continues to develop. But I am excited about him. I don't know if I'd put him. I think they are the next step down and still developing because at the end of the day, there's still some gaps between Georgia and Alabama and the rest to me in the SEC.
I think the matchup with this game, guys, is I mean, there's a lot of storylines here, man. But the matchup for me is this Ole Miss run game, right? I mean, Lane Kiffin's one of the best in the country in terms of I don't know about play calling, but I think it all works together. Just taking his group and going, this is what I have. Okay, now I got to get the most juice out of this squeeze. I got to find a way to make this work. I mean, they're one of the top rush teams in the country, 280 yards a game right now. I love the Zach Evans kid. He's from here locally. I think he's been to about 5 universities now, so I don't know what the hell's going on with him. But he's if he can ever settle in and get his head right, he is a monster now. But is that is that Ole Miss? One, is the team legit? Is the run game legit? But are they a legit 4-0 team? Do they have a chance to be the number 2 team in the West? Do they have a chance to be a 10-win team and get to a New Year's 6 bowl game? G, any thoughts on Ole Miss and what they're bringing to the table in this game?
What they're bringing to the table is that head coach and all his experience. Yes, with Stoops, just like Stoops has evolved. I mean, he's been grinding his whole adult life at this, but it seems like he's evolved in these last 2-3 years. Lane Kiffin has had so much growth, and he's been at the helm at a lot of places. And he was young and he was figuring things out. Goes to Alabama, and he kind of gets his baptism, and then now he starts it. FAU, now Ole Miss, and Ole Miss, like he adopts and adapts to what he needs to do, what he has to do. And I think he's just a big game coach. And so I think, with that factor alone right there, yeah, I think this is going to be a 12-rounder. I just think Kentucky, man for man and brand for brand, is just bigger, badder, better.